Hey Suhas and Sam, how are you? How are you two doing? I usually let the music play a little longer to try and fill some time while people get the notification and people show up. But since people are already here, I figured I'd chat a little bit. But we can chat first before I start coding, so give some more people a chance to show up before we dive in. I'm still early compared to when I do start. I am good. So, some exciting news if you didn't see it on Twitter, but I started a brand new job this week. So, today was day 3. I did skip streaming last weekend, yes. I was gone on Saturday, so the Saturday streams are something I'll probably do like every 2 weeks. The reason for that is like every 2 weeks I go see my girlfriend's family over in New Jersey, and so I'll probably just, when I'm there, I'm not going to stream, but on the weekends that I stay here at my apartment, I'll probably do some streaming. So there will be one this Saturday, which I'm excited about. I will say more about that later, if there are more people who come hang out. But we're going to stream this Saturday, and not sure what time, we'll work something out, but I'm going to do the much anticipated dependency injection stream, where I think I'm going to pick 3 tools. Oh, that's right, because Saturday is like midnight your time. But I will make sure that the video is recorded for you, and ideally this weekend, I'm not sure if I can commit to this 100%, but ideally this weekend I'll actually sit down and go through the recordings I have so far and throw these onto a YouTube playlist, because I think YouTube might be just a little more accessible than the Twitch recordings. So I'll spend some time with that. I don't know if I'll get very far. I'm not a YouTuber, so I need to learn about making thumbnails and things like that, but it could be fun. We'll see. But once I get those on YouTube, we'll have a more centralized location to find all of the streams, which would be nice. But yeah, Saturday I want to look into dependency injection, so I think the plan will be to pick 3 really common approaches that I've heard of, and try to do each one for this study guide app, and just make them in separate pull requests and kind of compare and contrast each approach. Having them separately would allow us to look into like build times, like number of lines changed even. Maybe we could look at APK size. We could dive into each one, and that would be fun. Probably Hilt, I think, which is like an Android helper on top of them. So actually, I was thinking Hilt and Coin, and then the third approach being self-dependency injection approach, where we can write the dependencies, manage. So, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be important for me too. So the new job that I started this week is I work for a company called Capsule. I'll actually share this in here. It's a US-based company, and it's also only in about 4 cities in the US right now. But Capsule is a pharmacy that delivers to you, so you don't have to wait in line for your medications and all of the struggles that normally come with that. And I am their first Android developer building their Android app. Yes, the CEO likes Shrek. That was a hilarious part of the podcast interview that cracked me up, because I love Shrek memes. I love joking about Shrek. It's not my favorite movie, but it's up there. But I just thought it was really funny that they said that. Shreyash, are you still here? Do you know what my favorite movie of all time is? I don't think he's still here. My favorite movie of all time is Cars. Yes, the Pixar movie. My girlfriend bought me was it Christmas or my birthday? One of those two. I think it was a birthday gift. She bought me a nice fossil watch, and on the inside, underneath the watch face, she got the word "ka-chow" engraved in the watch. It was very, very personal. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was an inside joke with Shreyash, because he kept insisting that we go see Cars 3 together, and I went without him. I'm sorry. I don't even remember who I went with. It was years ago now. I hope they make a Cars 4, and I will fly all the way to Michigan to go see it with you. So I think the number of viewers is kind of steady. Maybe people are busy tonight. I know my friend Brian, who's usually here, he couldn't make it tonight. He's out camping, so that's a reasonable excuse. But I'm gonna try to do some more posting about this on Twitter and try to get more people to come hang out every week. But I appreciate the small groups as well. That's always nice to have a small group because I feel like we can have more, what's the word? I think it's just more beneficial, more personal conversations about what we're working on. And speaking of those conversations, actually, let me go ahead and the Nightbot will always post this every once in a while, but there is the questions link for tonight for anyone who's interested in it. You can also always find it in the study guide repo. I'll go ahead and drop that in there too. You all seem like regulars, people who have it already. But if you haven't yet, make sure you give this repo a star. Also, follow the channel. If you're here already, because it just went live, you're probably already following, but tell your friends to follow. I'm trying to get like 3 more followers to hit the 50 follower threshold. That's what I'm going for. That would be exciting. So please share it around. And as always, let me know, like, I'm always open to feedback about the stream. Whoops. If any of you have thoughts or questions or ideas for future streams, but I think I've rambled long enough that I don't know if we're going to bring in any new people at this point, so let's look at the issue I had set up that I wanted to focus on today, which is to show the error UI if requesting articles fails. So this was something we talked about last week, but we didn't get a chance to actually build out. And why is that important? Well, right now I have my emulator that is in airplane mode, which means I have no internet connectivity whatsoever. And I'm going to go ahead and run the app, and it crashes. And I actually checked, let's move this around. The error log is surprisingly unhelpful, and I'm not 100% sure why. But I basically got this fatal exception, but I can see up here that the HTTP failed. I got this unknown host exception. Whoops, you can't see that because of my face. But basically what this is I can't access the internet, I can't make the network request to get the articles, and the app doesn't handle that, so it just breaks. So let's talk about how we can fix that. Well, ideally what I would like to do is, what do I want to do? Let's look at the UI first, just to get that out of the way, and then we will do some coding to make it show up later. So I'm going to pull up the fragment article list XML file, and this is where we have our recycler view of articles, we have our progress bar. I'm going to add, just for now, we'll keep the RSA down to a text view. And maybe we can come back in a little bit and make this also include like a button to retry the request. I think that would be fun, but we'll do that at the end if there's time. We'll call this error message. We'll use the tools namespace to give it a text and say there was an issue requesting articles. Oops. And we want to align this to center is what I'm going to do. So start to start of parent, end to end of parent, top to top of parent, and bottom to bottom of parent. I really wish there was an easier way to do that. Alright, so we can see that this will be centered, and we're actually going to set that visibility to gone because we only want this error message to show up if an actual error occurs. So that's the brief, UI work, to just dump a text view in there that's going to show up when there's an error. But now we need to tweak our view model and corresponding code and the repository even to handle this error. And we talked last time about unit testing and taking a more TDD approach moving forward. And so that's actually what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to go ahead and write unit tests for this failure case, and then we'll clean up all the code to get them to pass. So in here we have this article list view model robot, which we saw earlier, or last week. We have this method that will emit some articles from our repository. It builds our view model. It asserts the view state. We also have this call to make sure we have a certain number of calls to request articles. And we'll keep all of these, and this last one will be helpful even if we get to adding a retry state to really test that out. But what's missing from here? Well, what's missing is I don't have a way for my robot to emit a failure. This can only test the happy path scenarios. So let's add a new method to emit that failure. Right, so we will call emit failure. We'll have this take in some throwable that should occur, and this will be a new robot method, so equals apply, and then we'll make it so that our fake repository also knows how to emit a failure. And that method doesn't exist yet, so let's go into fake article repository and add it. So we'll create a function inside our fake article repository called emit failure. It'll take in what failure should occur. And then here, we're going to put a to-do because we can't actually implement this yet. And here's why. Our fetch articles method returns a list of articles. And if we really just want to handle an error case and then not break the coroutine, but handle the error gracefully and push that upstream, we should probably change the response type of this method. And so we're actually going to do that, but I'll come back to that after I finish writing out the tests. And then part of getting those tests to pass will be refactoring this method right here. Let's go into our viewModel test class real quick, and let's tweak this successful request test. I'm actually just going to copy that over, and I'm going to rename this test to failure request. And this won't take in test articles, actually. So we'll build the view model, we'll assert the view state is loading. Then what we'll do is we will emit a failure. Whoops. And here we'll just put a throwable and say network error is what happened. And then we're going to say that our expected view state is article list view state dot error. And does this take in? It does. Alright, so hold on. We're going to copy this network error and make that a local variable. So we're going to emit the network error, and then we're going to make sure that our expected view state is for the network error. And then we're going to assert the number of calls to fetch articles should still be 1. So let's run those tests and make sure that it does fail, as we'd expect. This is probably going to take a little longer than I thought to run everything. I don't know, maybe that's because it's the first time we run it today, and the caches are cleared, so hopefully the subsequent calls to run this test will be a little faster. Cool, they failed. We can see that it was this failure request one. We got this Kotlin not implemented error, and that comes from our fake article repository, because this is not implemented. So now we want to implement this, but in order to do that, we're going to have to change the way our repository works. So let's go into the interface and let's think about that. So we have this fetch articles method, and it returns a specific data type that we expect, a list of articles, but we want to change this so that this method is forced to gracefully handle error scenarios and can push that information upstream in a contract that's easier for me to follow. And so one option we had for that is actually there's in Kotlin, there's this result class in Kotlin. And what this does is this is basically a data class. Oh, it's not a data class, I thought it was. But it's a class that encapsulates like a successful option and an error option. And you create it by calling like result.success or result.failure to create this result. And then on the flip side, you then can say like, oh, is this success? Is this failure? And then handle it that way, which is nice. But it's a really helpful method. And what I still don't understand about Kotlin, though, is this concept, which is the result class cannot be used as a return type. And there was a reason for that I don't remember. Kotlin. Let's look it up. Return type. Stack Overflow. So here's their explanation. The rationale behind these limitations is that future versions of Kotlin may expand and or change semantics of functions that return result type, and null safety operators may change their semantics when used on values of result type. In order to avoid breaking existing code in the future releases of Kotlin and leave the door open for those changes, the corresponding uses produce an error now. Exceptions to this rule are made for carefully reviewed declarations in the standard library that are part of the result type API itself. So basically it's Kotlin saying they could change this in the future, but that there is a compiler argument to allow this if we want to. And maybe we do, but I don't know if we always want that. Like, I kind of do, but I feel like it's weird to do this if Kotlin doesn't recommend it. But since we are just exploring and building a study guide app together, I feel like I'm okay with it. And if Kotlin does break, I will be here to work around it. So let's copy this code snippet for adding that compiler argument, and let's add it to our project so that we can use this return type. So let's go into build.gradle. Can you add other states to it? Not to this one that I'm aware of. But also, if we don't want to use the compiler argument, something we can do is what's the word? We can make this ourselves pretty quickly. It's just that, like, if I don't have to reinvent the wheel, I don't want to. But we could build our own sealed class to do this real fast. So we could create one. Calling it response is vague. Every library seems to have a response class, but why not? Actually, let's call it like data response. So we know, like, hey, this is our thing. So we can create a sealed class called data response. It's going to be generic. And I think this is... I guess that's what we're going to do anyways. Yeah. So we can create one here. So we can create like success, and then add data. We'll extend data response, and then we could have an error, which will take a throwable, and that'll we can just have that extend nothing. That's how we get around like not specifying the type for an error. We could see this help us out in the future. So this is very similar to the Kotlin result class, but now it's one that we manage that does a similar thing, and we can use this as a function return type. So let's go ahead and do that, and that way we don't have to add compiler arguments to do things different from the JetBrains way. Oops. Okay, so now we're returning a data response, which is a way of encapsulating either success or error. And let's try and build this and see everywhere that this is now going to fail. Alright, so here's one place that it fails. Got it. So here, where we request the articles, this now needs to change because our repository is no longer returning articles, it's returning a response. So let's delete this real quick, and then we'll call this response. And then we can do a when statement based on that response. And we could say when, actually we can do this. We could say state.value equals when response. So we could say is success what do we say? It's going to be article list viewState.success with response.data, and then is error. Oh god. I got a new keyboard, so please forgive me as I can't type right. Cool. So this shows, interesting, why is this yelling at me? Incompatible types. Data response.error. Data response. Do I need to specify like the T here? I don't think so. I just ran into this problem the other day and I can't remember why. Is data response.error. Why aren't you let's try this the same way we did the success thing and see if that works for me. Okay, that worked here. I think we might run into another issue later on, but we're good for now. Okay, so now we're taking the response, we're mapping that to our article list view state, and so that's good. So let's try and build this again and see if we have any other app side things that we need to. Yes. So we need to change next the actual article service that's requesting articles. So this needs to now return a data response list of articles. And so the way we're going to do that is right here where we make the retrofit, or what is ultimately the retrofit request. We're going to wrap this in a try catch. That's the quickest way to put this. So we'll say return try. We'll say here we get the articles. So we can try to return data response.success for articles, but we'll catch an exception. And then actually we'll catch data response.error with E. So this way we've now handled whether or not this internet request works and pass that information further upstream. So let's build again. I think I've said this before, this is typically my approach to refactoring is build, let the compiler tell me where it broke, build again, let the compiler tell me where it broke, and just keep doing that until the project builds. Cool, so it's successful. I'll just jump in though where I know this will fail next, is inside fake article repository. So here, we're going to change this to be data response list of articles, but also that continuation that we made before, which is like a sort of backing data source for this method that allows us to choose when we emit articles or failure. We need to now change the data type of this to be the same thing as the list of articles. And once we have that, we can now, we'll have to tweak emit articles. So we'll make the response success articles. And then here we'll say I probably need to specify the type here. Yeah. And then dot resume and then response. So now we have implemented both our emit articles method to use this new response type, and then our emit failure uses it as well. So now we have everything flowing through that we expect. So let's go into article list view model test. Let's run this now. I think this will work, but the app will still fail, which we will see in a second. It failed. I think I know why. Let's go look at... So they're both error types, but the memory reference is different, so we're probably not handling equality right. I definitely do drink a lot of Coke. Thank you for calling that out. Oh man. Article list view state.error. So this error class, this needs to be a data class so we can get equality right. Yeah, I'm glad you saw that, Prince. Prince drinks a lot of Coke too, okay? If you're gonna call me out, call us both out. So error need to be made a data class so the equality can be handled correctly during our tests. So now I think they'll pass. You are an enabler. That's what you do. Alright, our test passed now. This is exciting. But what's still not going to work is the fact that the app will break. Now I'm going to commit this code for now. So adding error state and test. I'm also, I already switched to a new branch here. So. Is it running? Is this what I expected to see? Okay, push. And we can see, alright, it errored blank because our view is not doing anything with this error state yet. So we can fix that by going into article list fragment, and then we have display view state. And so now we'll do this. We'll do binding dot error message dot visible if view state is article list view state dot error. Now, one thing that's still missing is that this error message doesn't actually take a string. Now, we could have our view model do some work to define this string to make it specific to the error message, which could be an enhancement for the future, but for now, I'm just going to reuse this hard-coded string. Oh god. This hard-coded string that was already there. And we'll move this into a string resource. So, oh man, I am not good with this keyboard. Article fetch failure. So, we'll put this into a string resource so that, oh man. Oh man, what am I screwing up? What am I screwing up? I'm trying to reformat. Alright, sorry. New keyboard. It's still a Mac keyboard, but it's just different enough to mess with me. So now let's run this, and let's see if this works. Oh, it's restarting. I should have lied and said that this Coke is only when I stream. Like, it's to help me like stream, but it's not. I drink them all the time. Alright, so the error scenario works. And we can validate this by taking us out of airplane mode, wait for the networks to come back. Looks like they're starting up. We'll force close this app, and we'll open it back up. And we should see the articles now. Awesome. So now we've got the error states handled. So I'm going to push this up. I will make a pull request real quick. But let me know in chat if you have any questions or use the question link. But I can also chat while I do this, but I just want to get this code out of the way. And then we can do either two things. We can look into adding a retry method, if that's something y'all are interested in seeing. Or the other thing I wanted to do today, shortly, was to add a new loading animation to replace like the default Android progress bar. And I had some cool ideas for that using Lottie, a tool from Airbnb. So I'm happy to do that. I could probably do both, but I don't have this label here. We'll just create that. But let me know if you have strong opinions about one or the other. Oh no, the build failed. Oh, that was probably before I made my second change. We'll see if it still fails on this run. And maybe we'll follow this message to... Oh, you can't see it behind my photo. Apparently there's Android Studio 4.0.1, and I am on 4.0.0, so I'll probably need to update at some point. So, we'll see if we get any questions. I think it's just the three of us, the last two people who chatted and me. Must be a busy day for people today. But the gang's all here. SpongeBob reference. Oh man, okay. So, yep. Alright, we're just gonna move past that. Suez, do you have like an opinion between doing like a retry button versus tweaking the loading animation? Do you have one that you think we should do next? I know, I'm supposed to average above 3 viewers, and I'm not today. And today would be, if I had gotten my 3 followers, and if I had stayed above 3 viewers, I would have reached the affiliate threshold on Twitch. Which really just means I could start making money, which is not what I want to do, but it also means I can get like custom emoji support and a few other like channel perks. Cool, let's do retry first. We can do that. Let me see where this CI is at, because I don't know. If this is close, I might just let this build. Or I can do the retry in the same pull request. It's fine. No one really, I don't know if anyone really goes back and looks at these pull requests. But ideally, if they do, I'm going to split up the code. We'll do it. We'll make a new branch. 15. We'll do retry button. Alright, let's make a retry. So we could do that by going into our fragments XML file, and we need to add a button. And we'll just make this wrap content, give it an ID, retry button, and let's figure out how to lay this out. So for visibility's sake, I'm just gonna put the tools to make sure that that text is visible. Where do we want this button to appear? Well, I want it to be centered horizontally, so we'll do start to parent, end to parent. But the top is going to go to the bottom of the error message. And then the bottom of this will align to the parent. And actually, if I want to chain these two things together, what I'll do is, instead of aligning the error message to the bottom of the parent, we'll align the bottom of the error message to the top of the retry button. And that creates like a constraint layout change, which will like evenly space these vertically. I'm not a designer, but it looks alright. And the text here will be retry. And we'll convert, again. Option enter gives me shortcuts to make this a string resource for localization's sake. And by default, I want this visibility to be gone. We'll say tools visibility. It's visible, so I can still see that in the preview. So something cool we can do in a constraint layout, if you've never seen this, I don't think this is super well known, but I have these two components here, the error message and the retry button, and I always want them to be visible or gone at the same time. And we can actually do that in a constraint layout with something called a group. So let's go ahead and make one of those, which is, constraint layout group. These aren't actually visible, so we don't need anything here. But we can give it an ID. We can call it the error group. And then we need to give it, I'm gonna have to look up the documentation. But what a group is, it's basically a way of specifying related views, and I can change the visibility of all of those views just by changing the visibility of the group itself. So that is nice to have, and let's look at group constraint layout, Android. Because I don't remember the, so this is the attribute I'm looking for, this constraint referenced IDs. Sorry, that's small. Maybe it'll look bigger in the IDE. We want to specify this field. And actually, I think that's app namespace. Oh, nope, I did that. Okay. So that's what we want to specify. And this will be error message, retry button. And then by default again, their visibility will be gone. And so now, to briefly test that that change worked, let's go into our fragment, wherever that is. And so now, instead of just specifying the error message visibility, we can call error group and set the visibility. So we'll go back to our emulator and throw it in airplane mode. And let's run this, and all I'm doing right now is to test that the retry button will actually show up, and make sure that I did everything right with the constraint layout group. Cool, we have a retry button. It doesn't do anything. So let's hook it up. We will actually let's do some test-driven development here. Before we can write any tests, let's go to our view model and make sure it has everything we need to do, which is that it doesn't have any method to know that a retry button was clicked. So let's make one, and we'll just call it retry clicked, and then we'll just say to do implement this. But what I'm doing here is so I can go back into TDD, write some tests for a retry, and verify things work. Now, how do I... I'm actually wondering if this is going to work the way I think it does, but let's go down the rabbit hole and learn together. But actually, what we can do real quick, just to save us some time, is I'm going to... So I highlighted all of this data request code, and I'm going to do Command Option M, which gives me this extract function dialog, and then I can say, we're going to call this fetch articles from repository. And this now takes all that code, moves it into a private function for me. I'm going to put that at the bottom of this file. But now we can, and then in retry clicked, call fetch articles from repository. The reason the compiler's yelling at me is because this was just a constructor parameter because it was used inside the init block, but now we actually want this to be like a class field so we can reference it from anywhere. So we actually don't need to pass it into this fetch articles from repository method. But okay, this is good. So each time, so either when we init or when we call retry clicked, we're going to fetch articles from repository, show the data state, or show the view state based on that. So let's write some tests. We'll go to our article list view model robot, and one new thing we're going to need to add here is a method for the robot to click the retry button. So we'll create a method called click retry, and what this will do is this will just proxy through to viewModel.retryClicked. That looks good. So now we can go into our test, and I think we have everything we need to really write like a combination of these two tests. So let's do that. Let's create a test. We'll call this retry failed request. That's what our test is gonna do. So whoops, oh god, go back. So I'm just going to copy some code from earlier. We're going to keep track of our test articles, which will be needed for success at some point. And then I'm going to copy this error message, which will be used to show the error that happens first. So once we have these two things, we can use our helpful test robot that already does everything we need it to, and write out this entire test in a readable way. So we're going to create our test robot. We are going to first build the view model. Then we're going to emit a failure, which will be our network error. We will assert the view state is article list view state error with the network error. And then we're going to, whoops, oh god. Actually, let's test all of this, right? So we'll first build it. Then we're going to assert that the view state is loading. Then we're going to emit a failure and assert that the view state is error. Okay, then we're going to click retry, and then we're going to, again, assert that we're loading, and then we'll emit success, and then we will verify that our view state whoops, sorry, I might have to turn off Slack. That keeps blowing up. So view state is success. And then through all of this, just to top it off and make sure everything looks good, we can say a certain number of calls to fetch articles is 2. 1 for that initial request, 1 for the retry. Let's run this, let's see what happens. No idea if this is going to work, because I have some concerns. But we'll see. Don't shake your head at me. The reason I'm unsure if this works is because of... Oh, it does work. So I was curious in the fake article repository that, like, even though this is returning a suspend coroutine, I wasn't sure if it would... Oh, I guess it makes sense that it would return a new one because we called... Yeah, we launched a new coroutine. Yeah, first try. And I hope my test is not broken. I might need to do that thing where I make the test fail on purpose to make sure that I'm not crazy. But no, I think this works. So let's write a method here, adding retry and test. And what's not there yet, though, is just like last time, we did a TDD approach, which has been great. I think the reason that it did work on the first try is because of that test-driven development approach that made me think about each step very clearly. So just like last time, though, what we haven't done is we haven't hooked up this retry button. We can actually do that right inside onViewCreated, so we know that once our view has been created by the operating system, we can call binding.retrybutton.setOnClickListener, and then we could say viewModel.retry clicked. And we'll leave this here. We could put it in its own method. But now that we have this, I think we can go over and run the app and try this out manually as well. Alright, so we got an error. Let's take ourselves out of airplane mode. Wait for the network to show back up. Think it's good. Let's find out. And then we'll hit retry. We got our loading state. And we have articles. It works. Very nice. I'm glad that adding. Whoa, God. Keyboard. How am I this bad with this keyboard? It's the same layout. So we're going to push this up, and now, before I do the loading animation real quick, I do want to get this error state code into development, just for clarity. I also have an error, which is fun. I don't know why I have an error for my error code. Don't know what's up with that. But let's look at that. Oh, tests are failing. Oh, I know why this failed. So let's, sorry, to the first branch, and then I'm just gonna run the tests locally and see that the same thing happened. So this is exactly why you set up continuous integration to run your unit tests for you, because you will not always pay attention to every piece of code that your changes break. And so in my case, you will forget that we have an Android Essence article service test, which tests the specific stuff to fetching. Oh, I did update this. I thought that this was a different error, but oh no, that's the thing. I want Android Essence article service test. So this is the class that failed inside valid account list. And let's look at the Android Essence article service test robot. What changed in here? So I could look at the output, but I can tell you exactly what broke, and it's this method right here, where I'm testing my service, and I'm saying the actual articles is equal to the articles from the service, and then asserting that they're. But what's changed is we've changed this return type, and so what this actually is the response type that I made, and what we want to change now is say actual articles is equal to response dot, we'll assume success. We'll say response as success dot, nope, this isn't what I want. Oh god, response as data response dot success list articles. So we'll hard cast this. If this fails, that's fine. I still want my test to fail. I wouldn't assume that this works in production necessarily, but it's fine for our tests. So let's go ahead and run the test command now and see if this passes. Cool, that worked. So let's push this up. And now that's going to break the branch that I just pulled off of, but we will be able to fix that, and that'll be no problem. We'll just do a git rebase a second. This will be the PR for adding the retry button. we'll merge that after. But I'll probably try to just pause and waste some time while the CI runs on that. Why are you still an X? Oh, because you haven't pushed yet. Cool. So I'm glad that worked on the first. So while that runs, and it shouldn't take long, it'll take a few minutes usually. But while that runs, we'll talk about the next thing we'll do, which actually should be pretty quick, and then we'll sign off for tonight. And again, join us on Saturday for the dependency injection stream. I will be blasting that all over Twitter to get as many people as possible to show up and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't, but I'm excited to learn it in real time. So what we're going to do next before we sign off is change up the loading animation for when we request articles. So right now we show that like blue progress bar. We've all seen it. It's standard Android progress bar. This guy. But we can use Lottie, which is a tool from, let's look up Lottie first. So it's a tool from Airbnb, which allows you to take, let's look at their homepage. It allows you to take animations that designers create in Adobe After Effects. They export those animations into JSON files, and then you basically plug that JSON file into your app, and then you get these beautiful animations without having to recreate them yourself, without having to understand how to draw to the canvas on Android or any of that stuff. So here's the Android docs, which we will look at. And there's this website called Lottie Files, which is like a directory of animations that people have made, and you can either license them, pay a small fee to download them, or some are made available for free. But a cool one in here is this Android Studio loader that shows like the compass opening and the thing coming across. I just thought that was so cool, and since we're building an Android study guide for Android developers, that this would make a great loading animation. And I have the JSON file somewhere. I'm going to download it anyways, so I can find it later. But we will add this to the project once I know that my unit tests are passing. I hope that I did not spend enough time. So I think what I'll do, since I don't want to hold up stream, is you all saw me write the code. I'm going to let these sit there for a minute, and I will come back to them after the stream and clean up the code and merge them. And you can find them if you do want to reference it. I'll show you. I forgot to do this last week, but usually in the resources section, I will link to the relevant pull requests. So if you want to see that code, even though I'm not going to merge the pull request right now, check out this resource section sometime tomorrow or later today in the Australian case, and you'll be able to find them there. So I'm development, and I'm going to do, I think it was ticket number 14, do loading animation. So let's add Lottie real quick. Show you this is really fast to do. So first we'll add the Gradle dependency. Just copy that. Remember 3.4.1. We will go into our app. Sounds like my roommate got food. Wonder what he got. Sync this, make sure this works. So the way Lottie works is we have a few different ways we can load an animation. We can have like a JSON animation inside this source main res raw folder. We can have a JSON file inside source/main/assets. That's what we're going to do here. We can have a zip file. You can even have a URL to a JSON file. But the quickest way is we'll actually create this Lottie animation view and specify the res, and if we wanted to loop, if we wanted to autoplay. So we'll copy that over because we do want to do that. So we'll go into our fragment article list, and we're going to replace the progress bar with Lottie. So we'll call this progress bar still, just to keep the other stuff the same. We gotta copy these comments out. Oh god. Alright, so now this works. We will center this, so start to start of parent, end to end of parent, top to top of parent, bottom to bottom of parent. So this will center it. To add the JSON file that we found online, and we put that inside. So we have source, main, we'll create a new directory called assets, and then what I'm going to do, you may not be able to see this on your side, but I'm going to try to click and drag. I hate trackpads. We're going to drag this JSON file right in there into assets. Add that to Git. And one thing I'm going to do is rename this file. Call it Android Studio Loading. So now we have the JSON file for the animation in our project. Looking at the docs, we need this. We need Lottie file name and then to the JSON file. So let's do this. Lottie file name is Android Studio Loading.json. Think that's right. Yep. Alright, so let's see if this works. We'll run this. Are you using the trackpad with two monitors? Yeah, I have a wireless trackpad, but it's just really hard because the trackpad's only so big for me to drag from one corner of one monitor to the other. So I had to use two fingers to... I'm glad you couldn't see that on the camera, but we made it work. Hey, look. Alright, so this is showing up, and it's loading. And cool. Wow. So that was actually perfectly timed that the loading animation was in sync with the network request. But it may not always be. And so one thing I don't really like about this, or I shouldn't say that, one thing I noticed about this animation is that it is kind of slow. The fade in, the opening, and like if the network request is fast, we don't really get to see a lot of it. So one thing I'd like to do is make this animation just a little bit faster. And we can do that through a property I found called Lottie speed. And you give this an integer. And it's basically like a scale. So like 1 is as fast as it is now. 0.5 would mean make it slower. I can make this 2, and it'll basically make it double the speed that it is normally. So let's run this and see how this looks. It's nice, that's a little faster. It'll automatically loop for me, and now we have the articles. So that's a much more friendly loading animation that is now a very familiar Android logo that we're all familiar with, and it makes it feel a little more like an Android developer study guide. So that's Lottie. That's why developers love it. We don't have to write the animations by hand. We just get a JSON file from a designer, plop it in our project, plop it inside a Lottie animation view, and it works. So it's a very cool tool. I will make sure to add that into the resources. Studio loading animation. So I will make sure that I link to all of this in the resources. I'm a little behind on those, but don't worry, we'll get those in before Saturday for sure. So thanks for hanging out, the two of you. Bummed out that there wasn't a big crowd tonight, but still glad I was able to work through this. So, Suas, do you have any questions about any of that? Do you want me to go over anything that I worked on, or are you all good? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming by. I'll see you next week.